Yo, I cannot believe that my first photojournalist gig, my first concert photography gig was for Rotting Christ, Carach Angren, UADA, and Gaerea. It was so much fun, and I learned a lot, and I also learned something that you shouldn't do, which we'll talk about on this episode of Heavy Metal Philosophy. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, John Barbas. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for this week's Riff of the Week, and this week's Riff of the Week will be a special one. A few weeks back, I teased something on the podcast about something special happening for me in March. That time has come and gone, and indeed it was very special for me. It was a big dream of mine, and now I've accomplished it. When I joined the staff at Metal Digest, I was talking to the creative director, shout out to Chelf, and I asked her, I said, hey, one day it would be awesome if I could get a press pass and represent Metal Digest and go to a big concert. Chelf told me that we would be able to do that, and she came through. Quite a while back, I saw an announcement for an American tour with Rotting Christ being accompanied by Carach Angren, UADA, and Gaerea. Now, I've never heard of UADA before, but I'm a huge Rotting Christ fan, and I adore Carach Angren, and I'm pretty cool with Gaerea. They're new, so I'm not real familiar with them, but I like what I've heard so far, and now that I've been to the concert, I fuck with UADA too. So anyway, when I saw that tour announcement, I thought to myself, I have to see that. I have to see Rotting Christ, and I have to see Carach Angren. Like I said, I adore Carach Angren, and that band almost broke up. I read an article recently where they were considering calling it quits because, like every band, they had a lot of issues with the pandemic and the current environment when it comes to touring, so they thought that they might not be able to do it anymore. Well, praise the universe, they found a way to keep it together, and they are indeed touring, and I'm so happy I got to see them. But I didn't expect to see them like this. I emailed Chelf and I was like, hey, what about this show? And she says, no problem. She's actually friendly with Sakis Tolis from Rotting Christ. She knows their PR person or manager or somebody by a first name basis. Shot him an email right away, approved. I've got a guest pass. I am on the guest list for Rotting Christ. Now one of my dreams has come true. I've got a press pass. It's a photo pass to be able to go to the show and in official capacity represent Metal Digest. I am now 100% an official photojournalist, music journalist, however you want to say it. And I absolutely cannot believe that my first ever gig as a bona fide concert journalist was Rotting Christ and Carach Angren and hot newcomers on the block Gaerea. Are you serious? But you see, I got one big problem. I have zero history with photography other than being a subject. Because you see, before this, I was a musician. Long-time musician. I was on this side of the camera. And now I'm a podcaster and a writer, and again, I'm on this side of the camera. I don't really know much about photography, save what I've learned recording these YouTube videos. So now I'm thinking, shit, I've got to learn how to be a photographer like now. I've got a few weeks to prepare for this thing. Well, thankfully, from my previous career as a musician, I know an A+ level professional concert photographer. Shout out to Stephanie Hope Photos. I know that she's done big time concert photography. She shot Lamb of God. She shot Behemoth. She shot Nothing More. And that's just to name a few of the bands that she shot in big time shows. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I need help. And she was very gracious with her advice and told me exactly what I needed to get and what I needed to do. Those of you that have been listening to the podcast for a while, especially if you're watching on YouTube, you've seen the dramatic improvement in quality as far as video is concerned. I went from filming with a shitty camcorder at the beginning to a better webcam, and now I've got this camera right here. So at least I had a good camera body that would shoot in good enough quality, but Stephanie let me know that the lens that I have is not going to cut it for concert photography because you need a lens with a very wide aperture because you're in such a dark setting. It needs to be able to capture a lot of light. so I bought another lens. But unfortunately, Stephanie's based out of Seattle. She's on the complete opposite coast from me, so we couldn't really do one-on-one lessons, but that's okay because I got another friend. One of my former bass players, he got into sports photography after his career was over, and he is excellent. Shout out to Matt Austin Photography. He came and did me a solid. He drove out to the cabin in the woods, taught me all the settings on my camera, taught me about the exposure triangle, told me which podcast to listen to learn, gave me a crash course on what to do. So the past couple of weeks, I've just been practicing, watching YouTube videos, trying to learn as much as I can, as fast as I can. And I had one more thing up my sleeve that I figured I would do to prepare. I figured I would go to the next city over and go see a live rock and roll band in a bar and just shoot them for free, just to get some practice in. Well, longtime listeners will remember I did that podcast asking if rock was really dead, and I lamented that all of the rock venues were closing all around me, and there was 0 rock and roll shows on a Saturday night. I absolutely hate to say that. That breaks my heart. Absolutely destroys me inside. You know, it's fine. I got to have my career and I had a great time with many adventures, but my heart is broken for kids that are coming up that are not going to have a place to play. As far as I'm aware, there's only one active rock and roll band in the vicinity around me. That is excruciatingly painful. Now, some of my friends from the scene have gone on to join country bands so they can keep on playing, and they were like, John, just come shoot us. And I was like, no, I will not.
No, I don't think I will.
Fuck that and fuck country music. Absolutely not. I will not be subjecting myself to that. I would rather show up to the gig unprepared than go to a country concert and have to hear that bullshit just to take a few pictures. Not to mention, country shows don't really have darkness. They don't really turn the house lights down. They don't really have spotlights all going behind them. So it wouldn't even replicate the experience anyway. Listen, I love my friends, and I know that that's the way that the wind is blowing, but I ain't joining no country band just so I can play guitar in some bar on the weekends. No thanks. So unfortunately, I didn't go to a rock and roll show locally to prepare, and I just prepared the best I could without it, but I was woefully unprepared for what was actually going to happen. Y'all, it turns out that not only is concert photography very difficult, one of the most challenging types of photography, but black metal bands are the absolute worst to try to take pictures of. Gaerea, not only do they dress in all black, no spikes, no crazy buckles, no bullet belt, like nice dress black clothes, and they not only have the black hood that covers their face, but they also paint their arms and hands black so that they are completely black on the stage. And when I took a picture of them, it was just black. No discernible features whatsoever. And as soon as I took the first shot, I was like, oh, I am fucked. But that's all right. Thank you, Matt Austin, for teaching me about the exposure triangle. I did some quick adjustments to the settings, and I just started snapping as many photos as I could. A lot of them were just silhouettes with lights behind them, but some of those turned out pretty cool, and I did manage to get a few really great shots. I will have them playing on the screen. You can see them if you're on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube listening to the podcast audio only, don't worry, because my review of the concert with the shots I took will be published at Metal Digest. Links in the description. So yeah, Gaerea was the perfect opening act for my first experience, because not only did it make me realize, oh shit, I'm in over my head, but also they're a very artsy band with very deliberate movements. So they kind of, even though visually it was very challenging, as far as movement is concerned, they kind of broke me in slow. Then up next was UADA, and they didn't do me any favors either. They wore all black, this time not tight-fitting dress clothes, this time it was baggy clothes, maybe like a jacket, and every single member of the band had on a hood that completely hid their face. All you could see was once again a black silhouette. They used almost exclusively blue lights, which just played fits with the camera. All I could see of any detail whatsoever was sometimes their hair would come out of their hood a little bit. So once again, I just got what I could, and just by sheer volume, if maybe like 5% of my photos were good, by taking thousands of shots, I got a couple of good shots of them. They were easily the most difficult band of the night to shoot because at least Gaerea has that symbol on their hoods that would reflect some light. Now, they did have one thing going for them. UADA had these symbols in the background that really played with the light really well, and between the light and the smoke, I got some interesting shots where it's like their silhouette with that symbol like shining through the smoke in the background. That was pretty cool. I enjoyed that. Next up was Carach Angren. Yeah, that was special. Those dudes didn't do all black. They had awesome corpse paint with elaborate costumes, and they were an absolute joy to shoot. These are rock stars. Whereas Gaerea and UADA before them were more artists, and they were like, hide my face, I'm all artsy fartsy, you don't need to know who I am, it's about the music, man. Carach Angren came there to entertain. They weren't all shrouded in darkness and trying to hide their identity with these artsy, slow, deliberate movements. The lead singer was constantly bantering with the crowd and encouraging everybody to get after it. It's black metal, but it wasn't that like dark atmosphere. I'm so serious about everything black metal. It's very bouncy and bombastic. So much fun. The band is fun. And that's why I love Carach Angren so much. Just these great grooves, this bounciness to it. I loved it, and I got some shots that I'm super proud of. Much, much easier to shoot, and just the sheer panic from the first two bands forced me to really get on my game. So by the time Carach Angren came, I was like, okay, this is what I got to do. And because they made it easier and I was already on it, it just made it that much more easy. And then I got to shoot Rotting Christ. Now, I've always considered Rotting Christ one of those artsy black metal bands. They've got that incredibly beautiful, like, chanting sound to it. So, I was expecting something like that. Absolutely not. I mean, it was beautiful music, don't get me wrong, but those dudes came out, no corpse paint, no like elaborate costumes. They were dressed like normal ass rock stars. The lead guitar player had on like a leather vest with no shirt, tattoos, big hair. Sakis was just wearing like a black, tight-fitting, long sleeve, no pretentiousness to it. They just embodied their roles without having to wear a costume, and they just had a great time up there headbanging. Sakis was smiling and encouraging the crowd. He owned that stage like an absolute rock star. And that was great for me. I really needed that because after 3 bands of straight up black metal, to have a guy come up there and just have fun and be this huge personality and rock star, it made the capstone to the evening a lot of fun and a perfect way to get my mood up even higher before I went home. I got some fun shots of the band, but at one point, Sakis saw me taking pictures of him, and he put his face in the camera and yelled. And I wasn't expecting it, so I didn't get the greatest shot, but it made me smile so hard. I've done that to a million photographers and never thought twice about it. I'd be on stage, I see somebody with a camera, I go put my face in it and yell. Every single time. That's just what you do. And I never even thought about it. I never thought about how it made the photographer feel. I never thought about what kind of shot they were going to get. And I was never like this big, huge, famous rock star. So when it happened to me, I was like, oh shit, son, he put his face in my camera. I couldn't help it. I know you were supposed to be serious at the metal show, but this big shit-eating grin just came across my face. He saw it, he laughed. All was well with the universe for 2 seconds. Now, as I said in the intro, It wasn't all like the best. There are some cons to my experience. I'll talk about those now and what I did to mitigate them and what I'm going to do to mitigate them in the future, because hopefully I've got another one of these gigs lined up in April. So it turns out when it's your job to be at the show and you have a job to do during the show, you don't quite have as much fun as you would normally. Or maybe I should say you have a different kind of fun. After Gaerea and UADA said, I kind of realized, shit, I didn't really experience the concert. I've got the best seat in the house. I'm in between the barricade and the stage. I'm literally right there in front of them, best seat in the house, and I'm not really watching the concert. Everything I'm seeing through the viewfinder on my camera, and I'm not really paying attention to the music. I'm trying to get good shots. I'm scanning the stage constantly for who's doing what to try to shoot the cool things that are happening, and that's where my attention is, instead of hearing all of the music and watching all of the band. I'm definitely not headbanging, and I'm not, mosh pitting, because I've got a camera. I can't do that sort of thing, and if I'm headbanging, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. So it was definitely a radically different experience than what I'm used to. I really couldn't tell you what happened during those two sets. So after I realized that between UADA breaking down and Carach Angren setting up on stage, I realized, oh shit, I'm not really watching the show. I don't really remember what happened. So for Carach Angren and Rotting Christ, after I got some shots, I made sure I got some shots of everybody, that are good. And then the last songs, I was like, okay, I'm good. And I just watched the show and enjoyed it. I learned a ton of stuff. For my first gig, being thrown in the deep end, I learned so much. There's so many things that I'll do different next time. But that was the big one. When you're there doing a job, the concert is just different. You experience it differently. I had an absolute blast. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't a bad time. But I definitely needed to stop and just take it in for a second. I also realized that I might have bought the wrong lens. Stephanie told me to get at least a 2.4 aperture. I found a 1.4, and for those of you that don't know about photography, actually the lower the number, the bigger the aperture gets. So I was like, that's even better. I got that. It was a good price from a reputable company. And so I was like, yeah, I'll get that. That'll be real good. And it was absolutely great. Might have been a lifesaver during the black metal openers, Gaerea and UADA, but the shots were just so tight, and I didn't really have a good zoom, so I couldn't really get great shots of the drummer. But the shots were so tight that I also couldn't get good full stage shots unless I got out of the photo pit. So lesson learned there. I'll probably get another lens before my next gig. We'll see how the money is, because, I just changed jobs too. Those of you that have been listening to the podcast know I just got a new job. I don't know what the money change is going to be yet. We'll see. Hopefully it's better. I think it's better. Let's see. So with that all being said, I have to tell you what you should do if this tour is coming anywhere near you. Go see it. Rotting Christ is incredible live. They are absolute rock stars, constantly headbanging, constantly interacting with the crowd, constant high energy, and Carach Angren are like evil clowns up there. They're like demons in a carnival. It's just so fun to watch, and they're just full on energy. That frontman never stops moving. They got a wall of death to happen. That's the first wall of death I've ever been in. Just, man, you have to see this tour if you can. And that lineup is so stacked. Think about those four bands. I didn't know UADA before this, but when I said I was going, everybody on Metal Twitter was like, dude, don't sleep on UADA. Y'all all right? Y'all all right? Incredible. So let's close with the riff of the week. And I teased that this week's riff of the week would be special. And it is. Check this out, y'all. I was looking for the riff of the week that I should use this week. I was looking for a Carach Angren song, and I noticed there is live footage of the show that I was at. The YouTube account, Ash by Haynes, shout out to Ash by Haynes, uploaded footage from the concert. And I love this song by Carach Angren, The Carriage Wheel Murder. So I was going to pick that for the riff of the week, and I'm going to use this live footage because if you look closely, you can see your favorite heavy metal philosopher in the photo pit taking pictures during the song. Sweet Providence. Thank you so much for uploading that. Thank you so much for experiencing this with me with this podcast. And speaking of black metal, last week's podcast, I asked the question, which is better, death metal or black metal? And I made my arguments for both. If you're on YouTube, you can click right here and catch that one. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you.